When Camden returned home from school that day, his eyes were filled with tears and his demeanor clearly upset. Concerned, his parents inquired about what had happened. Despite being a second grader, Camden attempted to downplay the situation, but his parents were determined to find out the truth. Ultimately, Camden reluctantly retrieved a school assignment from his bag, which bore harsh criticism from his teacher. Upon examining the paper more closely, Camden's father, Chris, quickly realized that this critique was far from ordinary, and he was not willing to overlook it. According to his dad, he was just a regular kid, so it was surprising when the Pillen family noticed that their son was getting a lot of criticism from the same teacher at school. When Chris saw the teacher's notes on Camden's schoolwork, he started to wonder if something more serious was going on that he didn't know about. That's when he decided to investigate further. Camden is a student at Valley View Elementary School and is in the second grade there. Valley View is a normal public school. Camden wasn't a top student, but before this, he was doing okay with his schoolwork, and there weren't any big problems. However, when he started the second grade, Chris started getting a lot of complaints from the teacher. Even though Camden was like most kids in many ways, his dad always thought of him as a good student. While we all know that most kids tend to hate homework, up until the second grade, Camden had never had any problems with regards to completing it. It was difficult for his father to sit back and watch as his child was slowly starting to fail more and more. As a responsible parent, he felt that he had to do something. While Camden was by no means an unintelligent kid, it had become apparent that he was struggling. His grades were dropping regularly, and his father felt like it was unlike him to do so poorly at school. When he returned home one day with a written criticism from his teacher, Melissa Bonick, Chris realized that the teacher was likely at the center of all of this. The note read, "Absolutely pathetic. He answered 13 in 3 minutes. Sad." A little too harsh for Chris's liking. The teacher in question, Melissa Bonick, had been teaching at the school for some time and had earned herself a reputation for being a pretty tough teacher to impress. Camden was one of her students, and she'd not gotten along well with him that year. It seemed as though everything Camden did was wrong, and every mistake he made was met with a harsh written warning. The negative feedback was clearly having a negative effect on his self-esteem and confidence. Chris was really angered by this comment that Bonick had written on Camden's homework. He felt that the criticism was uncalled for and that she'd gone too far. Instead of offering constructive criticism, she'd simply attacked him personally. While he also wanted Camden to do better at school, he realized that this kind of negative attention was not helping at all. In fact, judging by the state that poor Camden was in when he got home that day, it was truly destructive. Had this been the only negative comment that he received from Mrs. Bonick that year, Chris probably wouldn't have had such a big issue out of it. However, Bonick had been sending home a lot of negative feedback over the course of the year, and most of it was a little more personal than Chris would have liked. Had the criticism been fair and balanced, Chris would have addressed Camden directly, but now he felt that it was important to talk to the teacher instead. Chris felt that calling a student pathetic was going too far. He believed that Bonick, the teacher, had a responsibility to ensure that every learner was treated fairly. He believed that encouraging students to do better was a much better solution to poor grades than harsh negative feedback. So, in order to get back at the teacher and make a point, Chris decided to post an update on his Facebook page about the incident and express his dislike for her attitude. After making a post explaining what had happened and showing the note that his teacher had written, Chris was surprised to see that it had exploded online. It was as though the whole country had taken an active interest in the saga that was playing out in his son's school life. The comments and interactions from the public showed that they were strongly against the teacher's harsh words. In some ways, both Chris and Camden felt somewhat vindicated by this. After having made the post online, Chris was prepared to leave it at that, but it seemed as though the internet had not yet finished with the saga. In next to no time, someone had started a petition online calling for Bonick to be fired. Chris was amazed that the public had rallied behind him like this. He'd never imagined that the story about his son and the teacher would become so important to many people. The petition made it very serious. It meant that Bonick's job could be in danger if she couldn't explain herself and deal with the criticism. But by this time, Chris was really angry and thought that firing her would be the best thing for his son and other kids who might have suffered from Bonick's harsh comments. Sometimes you have to set a limit, and for Chris, this was one of those times. After the petition for Camden got started, Almost 10,000 people had already signed it, but some teachers started defending Bonik, saying she shouldn't lose her job for what she did. What she did was really hurtful to a young student like Camden, and while they agreed she should be punished, they thought firing her would be too much. Some people who supported Bonik turned the problem around and criticized Chris' parenting skills. They told him to stop using social media and spend more time taking care of his children. They said that if Camden's dad had spent more time helping him with his homework, this might not have happened. Most people thought Bonik was wrong and she needed to make things right. They also found out that Bonik was going to have a baby soon, and some thought that this might have made her more emotional and short-tempered, which affected her patience. But it also made a point. They wondered what Bonik would do if she was in Camden's dad's shoes one day. Would she ignore it, or would she speak up too? Camden's story teaches an important lesson for teachers and parents. Even though teachers should behave a certain way, they can make mistakes because they are human, just like everyone else. As a parent, it's important to be involved in your child's schoolwork and make sure they have a good place at home to study and do their best. What do you think, who was right? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.